Alright, so I'm back, and today we are going to finish the Hobbit trilogy, and then tomorrow we'll start on the Lord of the Rings trilogy. And so I don't have the movie to show like all the other ones because it just came out. So again, spoilers are ahead. So yeah, if you haven't seen the movie, go see the movie before you watch this video, blah blah blah, you know the drill. Spoilers ahead. It's pretty standard stuff now. Anyway, so we get into this, the third installment, Battle of 5 Armies. And there's no, like, oh, here's what's going on, somewhere else, like in the Desolation of Smog, they showed the kind of almost a prequel scene where Thorin meets up with Gandalf for the first time in Fellowship of the Ring. They show the intro of the Battle of Mount Doom. Two Towers. They show Gandalf falling to the Balrog, and Return of the King. They show Smeagol's fall. This one, no interest. It just goes right into the dragon burning the city down, which actually makes up for the whole previous movie where we spend more time in Lake Town than we really needed to, because they build it up like it's an important part, and then it just gets destroyed first 5 minutes of this movie, and you're like, yes. So you're not like, oh my god, that's a terrible dragon. You're sitting there like, yes, kill them all, and which was great. I really enjoyed it. All the way up into where Bard kills the dragon. This bugged me a lot because there's no legitimate way that the way he killed Smaug would have worked at all. He has a bow and arrow, and he's shooting arrows at the damn thing, and it's not doing anything because it's a fucking dragon against an arrow. I mean, what did you expect, dude? I mean, I know you gotta try, but seriously, he grew up with all these stories of how the big black arrows, the only thing that could pierce the dragon's skin, how those things were bouncing off of him, and you're gonna attack it with a regular bow and arrow? No. So elves are fleeing, everyone's fleeing the town, and one of the elves, the girl elf, tells the son, like, okay, there's nothing that's gonna pierce that skin, and then the son is like, oh, that black arrow will. So he runs off, grabs the arrow, takes it to his dad. Okay, I get that. Bard's trying, and he's not going after Black Arrow because he doesn't know where his son is. He thought his son had left town and hid the arrow somewhere, so he had no idea what to do. He's not going to go searching while the dragon's burning the city down. Either way, he gets the dragon's attention with the arrows, and the dragon's kind of mocking him. And then his bow breaks, so he's got a broken bow. And he's got this arrow that, I mean, he grabs the bow like he's going to be able to shoot this arrow that's like the size of a spear at him. I mean, you need a bolt thrower for these things. And he's like grabbing his bow. And it's like, dude, really? There's no way. The bowstring is designed for the arrows that it shoots, not for giant metal arrows that are the size of a spear. So I don't know why he would even try that. But he did, realized the bow's broken. So then while the dragon's mocking him, he comes up with this idea on the fly to just wedge the bow ends, the broken ends, into, backwards and into the pillars of the little tower that he's on. And then he has his son standing there, and he's pulling the string back like this, and he's going to shoot the arrow like that. There's absolutely no way that would have worked. None whatsoever. I don't care. No, because there's no way you could just slam this part of a bow into wood and have it have enough strength to hold it while you're pulling this big string back. The string, again, designed for smaller arrows, not designed for these big, heavy iron arrows. So that wouldn't have been able to get enough strength out of it to send the arrow. His son is the one that's balancing. He's got the arrow on his shoulder and he's balancing it so he can shoot. And the whole scene, while this is happening, I know I'm going along about this one scene, but this scene really kind of irritated me. But the whole thing I could think of, okay, let's say he has some sort of inhuman strength and he was able to, or maybe bond the wood together to get that arrow, or the bow in place upside down inside the wood. And somehow he's got some super, like, maybe mithril string that he's using to pull attention on. Okay, let's give him benefit of the doubt and say that maybe he could do that. Okay, so he pulls the string back and lets it go. Well, that string is going to snap forward, and his son is standing there with the arrow right here. So that string theoretically should have come forward and just decapitated his son. If it's that strong to shoot something like that, it really should have killed his son. Which would have been kind of cool, actually. But, so of course, you know, he's able to fling this arrow with a hodgepodge bolt thrower made out of his son, broken wood, and a broken bow, and kill the dragon. I thought it would have been a lot more interesting if he had to leave his son behind on the tower falling apart so he can run over to the bolt thrower, because we saw the bolt thrower was still there. Just hasn't been used ever. It was more like an icon type thing. So it would have been cool to see him run, having to leave his son behind and run toward it, and then maybe not be able to find his son right away, and then finds him, and then, you know, dramatic reunion type thing. You know, that would have been cool. But, you know, whatever. Didn't happen that way. So, dragon's dead. Everybody's on the shore, and they're sitting there, like, talking about, you know, what to do. And Bard just apparently becomes leader. He didn't seem like he wanted to, which always makes the best leader. The ones that don't want to lead tend to usually do the best job in fantasy stories. So he gets everybody together, and they all start going up to Dale, so they can ask the dwarves for their share of the gold, which they should be entitled to. Not to mention they killed the fucking dragon for them. Dwarves didn't kill the dragon; they just pissed it off and sent him down there and killed a whole bunch of people. So yeah, the dwarves should pay up. So they go up there. The dwarves don't really have much interesting things going on up there. You know, they're just scouring the mountain for the Arkenstone, and that's pretty much it. Then then they see the humans coming, so Thorin says, "Okay, let's rebuild the wall." So they rebuild the wall. Then nothing really happens. You know, they're just kind of hiding. And this is the cowardly type that should have been in the second movie, not in this movie, because they just went one-on-one with a dragon. Yeah, they shouldn't be scared of few human, especially this ragtag, you know, little band of humans. So they build up the wall. So, you know, whatever. And then the elves show up with the humans, and they decide that that the elves are like, okay, we're going to war with these dwarves because they owe us, they want to reclaim their diamonds, really. So they're going to go to war, and he's asking if the humans are with him, and Bard is like, wait, let me go talk to him. Let's see if we can work this out. So he walks over there to talk to him. And he explains his situation to Thorin, and Thorin's like, no, we're not paying you. And it's just like, are you freaking kidding me? What is wrong with you? But it happened in the book. It makes sense, and they kept it. But, yeah, it was one of those situations where it's like, I know what's going to happen, but damn it, why doesn't he pay him? So it's actually, it's good. It's frustrating because these characters, by now, we're the third movie in, you're invested in these characters and you don't want to see them fail like this. Oh, and Legolas and the girl elf, they took off to Agmar, the stronghold right before it anyway, to find out what's going on up there, because they found out that Bolg is headed that way. So they head up that way just to see what's going on. So the elves are prepared for battle, the humans are prepared for battle, and then Bilbo shows up. Gandalf shows up and says, "Hey, you guys can't do this fight. There's an army of orcs on the way." Wait, I guess I need to go back a little bit here. I've only seen the movie once. They have the showdown between Sauron and the White Council first. So, which was really, really fucking awesome. This is probably the best, one of my favorite scenes of the movie, of this whole trilogy anyway. Because you get Saruman, who's still a good guy, Gladriel, Radagast, and Elrond all show up on the fortress of Baldur, whatever. They show up there and they have to fight the Nine, and these Nine are still in their ghostly state, so they kept killing them, but they kept just coming right back, and that was awesome. I really enjoyed that fight. And then finally they all they thought they won, and then the necromancer comes out and Saruman's like, "Okay, I'm gonna use my magic to stop you," and Sauron's like, "Human," and it was awesome. And then he brings all the Nine to him, and it's like, "Okay, now we're going to kill you all." And then Gladriel jumps up, and she's got the little, the light of the evening star, I think it was. I have a hard time with these elven names, but she jumps up with that and defeats Sauron temporarily, and he heads back to Mordor with the Nine, and she's weakened. Saruman tells Elrond, "Okay, get her out of here." Radagast's already taken off with Gandalf to go warn the dwarves, and Sauron says, "Leave Sauron to me," which we all know how that turns out. But it was just awesome. I really love that scene. Anyway, so Gandalf shows up with the humans and elves prepared for battle, saying, "Hey, there's a huge army of orcs on the way. We need to be prepared." And there's just like, okay, if there are an army of orcs, where are they? Because nobody saw them marching. So they're just, which is again something that didn't happen in the books, but it makes more sense because the way they marched was just kind of like, they're not here. So anyway, so the elves and the humans go up to the gates. They're prepared to battle. Thorin sees that there's, an army there, and he still won't budge. And then finally he looks over to the left, or no, a bird flies down and tells him what's going on, and he's like, "I want war." And here comes this big group of heavily armored dwarves led by his I think his uncle, all prepared for battle, and yeah, it was about to be exactly how the book had it. And in the book, the humans, the elves, and dwarves, they start fighting, and they fight and fight and fight and fight, and they weaken themselves, and then the goblins attack. This one, they never get a shot off. They're prepared for battle, they're ready into battle, and then all of a sudden the orcs attack. And then everybody teams up together. And that was something that they altered that I wasn't too fond of, but at the same time, I'm okay with it because this wasn't just a goblin army. This was a Urok army. Natural-born Uroks led by Azhog, the Defiler. And it was just kind of like, holy shit. These things are, they're the top tier orcs thus far in this series, and they were just dominant. And they had all these war machines that were once beasts, and the way they show up, they had these big maw worms that opened up holes in the ground, and then all of a sudden these orcs just start pouring out, and they're just like, I see that army that Gandalf was talking about. You know, it's right over there. It's just army. And you see Azhog up on this hill, and he's giving orders, and they have these little banners that they're altering for each order that he gives, which was awesome because he's able to give a command from a distance without having to yell it out, and without the humans and dwarves and elves knowing what the next battle move was. It was really clever. I really enjoyed it. And all these orcs were like, you know, they were battle hardened and they were ready to fight, and it was awesome. I really loved it. Lots of stuff happens during this battle, and I can't really go into everything because I'd be here all day. All I can say is go see this for the battle. It is just incredible. I love the battle. Yeah, they renamed the movie Battle of Five Armies, and it really was the Battle of Five Armies. This thing, actually probably more than that because yeah. But it was really, really fun. I really enjoyed it. But throughout the battle, it goes back to Thorin and how he's like, no, we're not going to fight. And he's just basically going mad and saying, hey, let's go hide the gold down in the cellars and stuff like that. Again, stuff that happened in the book. One thing that didn't happen in the book that they added in was Thorin standing alone in the sea of gold that they tried to smelt smog in. And he's sitting there and he's just kind of like putting together that there's something wrong. And he realizes that he does have the gold sickness, or dragon sickness as they're calling it. Which is again something I mentioned in the book. You know, to have the dragons sleep on the gold for too long and it poisons the men's minds that they try and take it. They mentioned it in the book when after Smaug died, people tried to steal the gold that was stuck to his underbelly, and it everyone that stole it died horrible deaths because of the sickness. So, you know, it was kind of cool, and it was cool to see him coming to his senses. And then he's like, okay, let's go. So he gets all the dwarves, and they charge in the battle, and they're fighting, and they break the orc lines, and they're doing good now. Bard and the elves are trying to defend the little town of Bree where all the people are. No, not Bree. Is it Bree? Huh. No, not the town of Bree. Have I been saying Bree this whole time? Huh. Dale. Town of Dale. Hey. So anyway, they're attacking the town of Dale, and so their elves and men are trying to defend it, and then Gandalf's there, and he's kind of like, huh, we might actually be able to do this. And then he sees Thorin, Feely, Keely, and I can't remember the other dwarf's name, but the four of them riding giant goats into to battle, and charging after Azhog, and he's like, alright, they're gonna go kill Azhog, and once Azhog's dead, this army will crumble. He's like, getting pretty confident of himself. Then Legolas shows up and says, hey, remember his son Bolg? Yeah, he's leading another army from the north. They'll be here in minutes, and they're going to be coming over that big mountain, or coming over the river. And that's what Gandalf realizes, like, oh shit. You know, the whole time we've been fighting all these orcs that are here and weakening ourselves, the second army is going to come in and just lay waste to us. And he realizes that Thorin and his guys are going right into a trap. So Bilbo volunteers himself to run up there, and again, this is things that never happened in the book because the story follows Bilbo's perspective, and he gets hit in the head pretty early on in the movie, and while wearing the ring, and so he passes out, and he's just invisible, hiding somewhere. For a long time, and then finally he comes to and takes the ring off, and everyone's like, "Oh, there you are," and the battle's over. So all of this is new. Watching the battle unfold, and it was a lot of fun. But instead of Bilbo really getting knocked out, he runs over there and he's trying to warn Thorin that it's a trap, and Thorin had already sent Fili and Kili across the river to find out where Azhog is. And Bilbo informs him of the trap just in time to see, I think it was Kili getting killed by Azhog. Well, Azhog's saying, first this one, then his brother, and then you, and then you'll realize your entire bloodline is dead. And it was awesome because he kills him like unremorsefully, just dead. And I was like, that's pretty cool. I like when bad guys just kill unremorsefully. I don't like hesitation and last minute saving, and then the director realizes, oh well, that guy was supposed to die, and then having to find a way to make him die. It doesn't work for me. So anyway, you get that dynamic. Fili gets mad and starts charging in battle, or maybe it was Keely, I can't remember. He charged into battle and he gets in a fight with Bolg. And Bolg, the son of Azhog, leading his army in, beats the ever-living shit out of this dwarf. Then the female elf jumps in and tries to save him, and she gets the ever-living shit beat out of her. And then the dwarf jumps up and tries to kill him again, and he beats him up again and just slowly stabs into his heart and just throws him to the ground and killed him. Just dead. Well, I mean, he's dying. And the female elf jumps up, tries to stop, tries to avenge him, and again, he beats the ever-living shit out of her and throws her aside. Just casts her out like garbage. I mean, it was great. I mean, I'm not sitting here saying, oh, it's great to beat up women, but at the same time, you don't see elves lose so unremorsefully to orcs. Maybe to a Nazgul, something like that, or something more powerful. But an orc, you don't see that very often. Let alone a main character. Two good guy main characters getting beat up by one bad guy main character at the same time. You don't see that, so it was really cool to watch that for me. And then to finish off this fight, Bilbo gets knocked out. Legolas gets involved, and they kind of go back and forth, and Legolas ends up throwing his sword that he took from Thorin when Thorin was in the woods. He throws it back to Thorin. We'll get back to where Thorin's battle goes into. So he's fighting with his little dagger things again, like he does in Lord of the Rings, and just like in the last movie, he goes to stab Bolg, and Bolg grabs the blade, and that's something again you don't see because it's just like he's so quick, he grabs this blade, but then Legolas is like, yeah, you did this last time, I remember that, I remember this, you're not catching me off guard this time. So he jumps up on top of him and stabs the other knife right down into the top of his head, and you just see Bolg like and die. So that was like, yes, it was one of those like, okay, he's a good villain, and he had a really good showing, and he's dead now. Meanwhile, Thorin is fighting Azhog, finally. And they're going back and forth, and Thorin loses his, I think he was fighting with an axe or something, but he loses that it breaks while he's fighting a bunch of other orcs, and so he has no weapon against Azhog, and Azhog's got the big knife for a hand here, and he's got this big chain with a rock at the end. Very primitive but very effective weapon that he keeps swinging it at Thorin, and they kind of go back and forth for a little bit, and when Thorin thought he was about to die, that's when Legolas throws his sword back to him, and Thorin's like, okay, I got the sword now, let's go. And he starts fighting Azhog. And it was a great fight. It was a lot of fun, you know. They both get their hits in, and Azhog kept trying to swing that big rock around. And then by the end of him swinging that rock around, you really could tell that he's getting tired. And again, that's something you don't really see in movies of where the villain is just getting tired of trying to fight. He's just like, ugh. You know, usually they're just full of energy and they just do this all day. But seeing that, it made it more realistic. And so he was swinging the rock around, and eventually he had broken this big chunk out of the ice, and Thorin like grabs the rock, throws it over to Azhog. Azhog's holding it, and Thorin just takes 2 steps back, and then the ice that he was on just flips over, and Azhog's now under the ice. And Thorin sees him sliding, but then Azhog stabs up with his blade hand through Thorin's foot, jumps up, and he's about to stab down to kill Thorin. Thorin's got the sword in the way, and realizes he doesn't have the strength to stop Azhog from stabbing him. So he does the only thing he can think of. He slides the sword out of the way, he gets stabbed, but then he just rams it right into Azhog and kills him. So it was a really good end to that fight scene. You know, they both die, and it was just great because, you know, this is animosity between these two characters, and you don't have this in any of the other Lord of the Rings. You don't have just one villain and one hero that kind of fight on and off for the course of the entire trilogy. You don't have that. It's just like, you know, villain of the week almost. And then but this one you do. You have this huge rivalry in between these two that finally ends with them both killing each other. And that's the only way I can think of making it end. Without making it like, okay, Azhog really wasn't that powerful and Thorin kills him, but then you'd sit there and question like, well, okay, but Thorin's dad and grandfather couldn't take the thing out, and why didn't Thorin take him out earlier? Or you could have had Azhog kill Thorin, but then you'd have to sit there and figure out, okay, well, who's going to kill Azhog now? Another one of the elves who was having problems with his son? Probably not. So it was a good way to end that scene. And then, you know, they wrap up the war by having the eagles fly in, just like in the book. And then, you know, Bilbo says his goodbyes, and he goes back to Rivendell with Gandalf, or he goes back to the Shire with Gandalf. And Gandalf's like, yeah, you're not fooling me. I know you have a magic ring. There are many of them in the world, just you have to make sure you be careful with them. And he has that suspicious look, and he rides off. And then Bilbo gets back to his house and realizes everything's up for auction, which again is something that happened in the book. And he spent, from what they say in the book, he ends up spending half of the Trolls treasure from the first movie to replenish all his stuff that got sold. But he had more than enough gold to live out the rest of his life in luxury. So yeah, that was, and then in the very ending of the movie has him putting the final touches on his book when Gandalf's knocking on the door, which is something that happens right at the beginning of Lord of the Rings, which was really awesome. I really liked it. So despite the fact that the Bard Archer part, that part really bugged the hell out of me, in case you didn't notice. And the movie itself was really solid, well paced, and just a lot of fun with the war scene, because I love battle scenes, and this had a lot of them. But so all in all, I have to give this movie a 10 out of 10. I say go see it. It's very much worthwhile. So yeah. So tomorrow we'll be doing Fellowship of the Ring, and I hope you guys are enjoying this. This is by request, so I hope you guys are enjoying it, and then we'll get back to Transformers. We got Masterpiece Soundwave coming up for the first of the year.